Hi, I'm Libby, and I'll be reading you today's Cape Cod Times, dated Friday, May 10th, 2024. We've got a little bit of rain in today's weather outlook. It will reach into the low 50s. Tonight, it will still be cloudy with a few showers. On Saturday and Sunday, highs will get into the mid-50s with low in the mid-40s. Saturday will be cooler, and the raindrops come back on Sunday. Monday looks beautiful, with highs in the 60s. By special request from a few of our faithful listeners, we now present the lottery numbers. For Thursday's midday drawing of the numbers game, we have numbers 7, 8, 9, and 9. The evening drawing on Thursday numbers were 8, 4, 7, and 1. Thursday's mass cash drawing numbers were 1, 2, 22, 23, and 26. Wednesday's Powerball drawing numbers were 7, 41, 43, 44, 51, and the extra ball of 5. And finally, for Tuesday's Mega Millions drawing, we have numbers 26, 28, 36, 63, 66, and the extra ball of 15. The local story on page 1 is headlined, "Doing My Job. Cape School janitor arrested, made to retire," he says, by Rachel Devaney of the Cape Cod Times. During a typical 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, former Barnstable High School custodian Gerald Lopes cleaned up spills, disposed of lunchroom trash, and delivered paper towels, bottled water, and printing paper to classrooms. But at about 10:32 a.m. on Friday, March 22nd, Lopes found himself struggling to stand after he was tackled by Barnstable police officer Matthew Malia, he said, and placed into handcuffs. "I got arrested for doing my job," said Lopes, who was a custodian at the school for about 18 years. According to a Barnstable police report, the school went on lockdown after a student who was experiencing a mental health crisis climbed onto the school's roof. When Lopes appeared behind the school to throw trash into a dumpster after a student lunch period, Lopes allegedly ignored Malia's warnings to evacuate the area. Lopes said, "Expletive you, I have a job to do," to Malia, according to police documents. The police report was provided to the Times by the Barnstable District Court Clerk's office. The student's name wasn't revealed in the police report. According to a public records request, which was provided to the Times on May 3rd, Malia and school resource officer Dennis Stampfel weren't using police body cameras during the incident. Lopes, 63, was arrested and charged with intimidation of a witness, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest, according to court documents. Lopes appeared in court at around 3 p.m. that day, he said, and was released. Lopes appeared in court April 22nd for a pretrial conference, and his case was continued to June 17th, he said. Superintendent of Schools Sarah Ahern emailed the Times and said the incident is a police matter. Faculty and staff were responding to an emergency situation involving a heightened moment of extreme concern for the well-being and safety of a student, said Ahern. School principal Elizabeth Friedman didn't return calls or emails from the Times. Police Lieutenant Mark Mellon told the Times that police can't discuss ongoing investigations. The school, according to Lopes, issued no warnings to staff about an emergency situation until after he was arrested. "The school is responsible for the safety of students and staff," said Lopes. "I felt attacked. I feel like this entire situation was racially charged," said Lopes, who identifies as Cape Verdean. According to Massachusetts school and district profiles, there are currently about 15 African American staff members, 13 Asian employees, 30 employees who identify as Hispanic, 3 Native Americans, and 5 staff members who are mixed race within the 2023 to 2024 Barnstable Public School System. There are about 817 staff members who are white. What actually happened behind the school? According to Lopes, the police report is inaccurate. While he admits that he told police that he didn't care about the well-being of the student at that time, he said his reaction was in response to Malia's behavior. "I go out there and the cop says, 'Get the expletive,' back in the building. The building is on lockdown, said Lopes. Another custodian, who Lopes didn't name, was following Lopes out of the cafeteria at the same time, also carrying trash. Malia also yelled and swore at that custodian and kicked his trash can, said Lopes. According to the police report, when Malia tried to cuff Lopes, he grabbed wooden pallets located on the loading dock and refused to put his hands behind his back. Lopes was cuffed firmly, according to the police report, but not to impede circulation. Lopes said he was tackled onto the pallets by Malia and was handcuffed so tightly that the metal bracelet split his skin. Lopes provided photos to the Times of his wrists and arms, which showed cuts and bruises. The injuries, he said, were the result of his encounter with police. All that cop had to do was talk to me with some kind of respect, said Lopes. You don't talk to people like that, especially another town employee. The Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office declined to speak on the matter, according to Danielle Whitney, who directs community programs and public relations for the office. Was the school on lockdown? In the police report, Malia added a note that said the entire school was on lockdown due to the issue at hand. But Lopes claims the school wasn't on lockdown. Lunch was in session, and kids and teachers were in the lunchroom at that time, he said. No one in the building even knew what was going on. Ahern told the Times in an email that Friedman issued a communication to faculty and staff to ensure that no one, adults included, went behind the building. The problem, said Lopes, is that the email was sent by Friedman at 11:11 a.m. after he was arrested. Lopes provided a time-stamped screenshot of Friedman's email to the Times. In the same email, Friedman said the situation with the student was not a safety issue. Massachusetts Association of School Committee Executive Director Glenn Kuchar said it's clear when a school is on lockdown. It means everyone stays in their classroom and nobody comes out. There may be an exemption for custodians who are needed to unlock doors and move things around, said Kuchar. Was Lopes forced to retire? In his professional career at the school, he has been issued one warning for swearing to another employee in about 2022, according to Lopes. After the incident, Lopes said he wasn't given the option to go on administrative leave. Ahern, the school superintendent, said Wednesday by email that she could not comment on an individual's personnel history. When asked to confirm Lopes' statements about any previous warnings he received or his options for administrative leave. The school should have put me on administrative leave until the investigation and the court process was over, he said. That's what they normally do. According to Kuchar, dangerousness applies when determining administrative leave. If a staff member has been arrested for a domestic dispute, or if there's a question of safety surrounding an alleged perpetrator, then the district might put that person on administrative leave, said Kuchar. It seems like he could have easily been reinstated, said Kuchar of Lopes. It also sounds like more needs to be unraveled here. On March 25th, the Monday after his arrest, Lopes said his daughter, Ashley Lopes, who was also a custodian at the school, showed up to his home. His daughter told Lopes that head custodian John Walsh had been trying to reach him. Walsh had told Ashley Lopes that the town Human Resources office was requiring Lopes to submit his retirement papers by 3 p.m., according to Lopes. If the retirement papers weren't signed, there was the risk of being terminated, causing him to lose his retirement pension and benefits, Lopes said. I felt pressured. I didn't know what else to do, and they weren't giving me a lot of time to decide, said Lopes. I went down there and signed the papers. Walsh told the Times over the phone on May 3rd that he had no comment on Lopes' arrest or status at the school. Lopes will receive $1,600 per month for his current retirement pension, which isn't much, said Lopes, because of tax and insurance deductions. Lopes was also paid for 7 weeks of vacation time, he said, and is still owed 119 hours of sick time by the town. Town of Barnstable Human Resources Executive Director William Cole didn't return calls or emails from the Times. What's next for Lopes? Because of the incident, Lopes now faces 2.5 years in prison if found guilty, he said. Interactions like this, he said, between people of color and the police are traumatic. After I was arrested, another custodian who saw everything that happened left work that day. He cried, said Lopes. He was rattled and upset. Despite the experience, Lopes said he will miss the time he has spent with students, teachers, and staff throughout the school district. I've said hello to probably thousands of students at the high school over the last 2 decades. I've seen 17 years of students graduating. I was looking forward to seeing a few more, he said. More nurses plan to leave field, by Allison Kuznets of the State House News Service. 20% of Massachusetts-based nurses intend to leave the field in 2 years or less, citing deteriorating quality of care delivered in hospitals, understaffing, low pay, and other challenges, according to survey results released Monday. 80% of registered nurses, or RNs, say the quality of care has worsened in the past 2 years, and 49% say it's gotten much worse, according to the survey from the Massachusetts Nurses Association that coincides with the start of National Nurses Week. Direct care community hospital nurses are feeling the staffing crunch most acutely, the survey says. Beacon Research, which conducted the survey on behalf of the Nurses Union, polled 510 RNs, the majority of whom are not MNA members, from February 27th through March 11th. Registered nurses across the Commonwealth continue to have a bleak outlook on the state of care in hospitals, the survey says. They see an ongoing deterioration of conditions and don't think hospital management or lawmakers are listening to their concerns or doing enough to protect the quality of patient care. The majority of bedside nurses reported not having time to provide care and attention to their patients, needing to care for too many patients at one time, not having enough beds for all patients, and inadequate pay. A quarter of nurses say they were aware of a patient's death due to the care load. Nearly 40% of nurses said they wouldn't feel safe admitting a family member to the unit where they work. Why are nurses leaving the profession in Massachusetts? Of the 1 in 5 nurses who plan to leave the profession, 37% said they're departing because of burnout, exhaustion, or lack of support from employers, an 11 percentage point increase compared to last year. Boosting salaries is the top way employers can retain nurses, followed by limiting how many patients can be seen at once, according to the survey. 3/4 of nurses say lawmakers are not taking action to resolve unsafe staffing levels in hospitals. Just over 60% of nurses say that hospital administrators are not responsive to feedback about unsafe staffing levels and patient loads. Nurses are clamoring for real solutions to fix the awful conditions that are driving them away from the profession and leaving patients in unsafe, overcrowded environments, Katie Murphy, MNA's president, said in a statement. Unfortunately, our annual survey shows that healthcare executives and state officials are failing to respond to nurses' concerns. Nurses who responded to the survey also sounded the alarm about workplace safety. Some 64% of nurses said that workplace violence and abuse is a serious problem, a similar level compared to last year, but a 22 percentage point increase compared to March 2021. Over the past 2 years, 68% of nurses said they personally experienced at once instance of workplace violence or abuse. Meet Candidates in Provincetown's Annual Election, by Eric Williams of the Cape Cod Times. Provincetown will hold its annual town election on May 14th. The select board race and the school committee race are contested, and there are 2 ballot override questions. Other positions on the ballot include moderator, board of library trustee, charter compliance commission, and housing authority. Current select board member Leslie Sandberg is running for re-election against Jerry Miller for a seat with a 3-year term. 3 candidates are running for 2 seats on the school committee. Current school committee member Nagina Lythcott is running for re-election against Sean Patrick Gannis and Therese Nelson. 2 3-year terms are available. The 2024 Provincetown election will take place in the Town Hall Auditorium from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on May 14th. A sample ballot can be found at the provincetownmass.gov website. Incumbent Leslie Sandberg is grateful to voters who elected her to the select board and is eager to return for another term. We have a good board that is engaged and focused, she said. The number one issue here is housing. We've done a lot for housing in the last 3 years, and I want to continue that work. Sandberg would also like to concentrate on climate resilience issues, both in the short and long term, if she is reelected to the board. We can't wait on that, she said, pointing to flooding in town over recent winters. She added that she'd continue to listen to and learn from community members as the board works to help solve community issues. Jerry Miller, a candidate for select board, could not be reached by the Cape Cod Times. School committee race, Nagina Lythcott. The most important thing is what the children need, said Nagina Lythcott, who is running for re-election. I want to continue doing this work. Lythcott, who is retired from a career in higher education administration at several prestigious universities, said serving on the school committee has been an incredible experience. Lythcott is proud of the growth of the school system's International Baccalaureate program. It helps create adults who are knowledgeable and responsive helpers, she said. And she also praised the school system staff. We have extremely high-quality teachers and administration, said Lythcott. Sean Patrick Ganis. It's his first time running for elective office, but Sean Patrick Ganis has considerable experience in the educational field. The year-round Provincetown resident works as the Director of Student Financial Services at Emmanuel College in Boston, and also has a son who is a student in the Provincetown school system. Provincetown is in a fortunate place where we're seeing some growth in enrollment, said Ganis. I want to help make sure that the growth is intentional and be a passionate voice of support for the school system in the community. Therese Nelson. Therese Nelson served 3 terms on the Provincetown School Committee during a challenging time when enrollment was declining. She described that era by saying, "It was hard to dream when you're trying to survive." Nelson's daughter was part of the last class to graduate from Provincetown High School in 2013, before it closed. She's excited about how the town is embracing the school system and believes her years of expertise can help it continue to grow. The school is the heart of our community, said Nelson. It's time for me to go back to school, support the staff and administration, and be an advocate for education. Ballot questions. There are 2 override ballot questions for Provincetown voters to consider. Question 1, an operational override question, asks voters if the town shall be allowed to assess an additional $373,342 in real estate and personal property taxes to fund the Provincetown School Early Learning Center for the next fiscal year. Question 2 asks voters if they want to exempt from the provisions of Prop 2.5 an $11.8 million bond to fund the construction and site development costs of the Mata Field Master Plan redevelopment. According to the town, the design includes a 400-meter track, regulation soccer and Little League fields, a skate park, shuffleboard and bocce courts, pickleball, and tennis courts. Martha's Vineyard painter wins $1 million from Jaws lottery ticket. By Veer Mudambi of the Worcester Telegram and Gazette. The winner of the 3rd $1 million prize in the Massachusetts State Lottery's Jaws instant ticket game has been announced, but 3 more winning tickets are still swimming around the state. Gesamar Silva of Tisbury claimed his prize May 3rd from the Mass Lottery headquarters in Dorchester. The Martha's Vineyard painter was inspired to buy this ticket from Depot Market in Edgartown by the Jaws theme, as the original film was shot in the area, according to a press release. Silva took his prize in the form of a one-time payment of $650,000 before taxes, and plans to use his winnings to take his first vacation in 30 years with a trip to Florida. Not too late to hook $1 million. The Jaws instant ticket game went on sale on March 26th, and in addition to the 3 remaining $1 million catches, also features a series of 5 second chance drawings, in which a total of 30 winners will be awarded a trip for 2 to Martha's Vineyard in the summer of 2025, according to the press release. In keeping with the name of the game, the trip will be Jaws-inspired, and all 30 trip winners will participate in a Jaws-themed game show with another shot at $1 million prize. Trip winners are randomly selected from non-winning tickets submitted into second chance drawings. Trip packages include a 3-night stay for two at Harborview Hotel in Edgartown, black car service to and from Port Ferry to and from the island, plus island transportation daily. Daily breakfast, welcome toast and dinner with entertainment at the Harborview Hotel, taste of vineyard dinner at the Harborview lawn, $1,000 in spending cash, and Jaws branded welcome gift and a Jaws Island tour with custom guided bus across the island, a private Jaws movie screening at the Harborview Hotel, and a shark-infested waters theme party on the Harborview lawn. Survey: guilt leads customers to tip more. Study says tipflation hits Americans' wallets, by Betty Lynn Fisher of USA Today. Do you feel a ping of awkwardness or pressure when you see a tip request pop up on a screen at the end of a transaction? In other words, are you guilt tipping? You're not alone. Americans spend nearly $500 a year tipping more than they'd like to, according to a new study. Talker Research, a research and polling agency, recently conducted a survey of 2,000 Americans asking how much tipflation may be impacting people's wallets. The poll found the average respondent reluctantly tips $37.80 a month due to the pressure of tipping options presented to them. That figure equates to $453.60 a year in guilt-induced gratuity, with over a quarter feeling they're always or often forced to tip more than they would like, Talker Research said in a post about its findings. Talker Research wanted to get reactions from consumers on their feelings about tipping, including how people of different generations feel, he said. Do we really need to tip? According to the survey, the average respondent tipped more than they'd like on 6 occasions within the last 30 days. Whether it's the watchful eyes of a barista, the hastily swiveled tablet, or the waiter handing you the card machine, more than half of respondents note that pressure to tip higher is a regular occurrence, Talker Research said in its post about the survey. Only 24% said it was a rare experience for them to feel put on the spot when tipping. Here are some other results from the survey. 49% of respondents said they'd noticed their options for tipping on tablets and digital devices increased in value in the last month alone. Nearly a third answered that they'd been asked to tip for a service they wouldn't normally consider tipping for. Men feel pressured to tip higher more often than women. There are generational differences in how people feel about tipping. Gen Z and millennials were almost twice as likely to say they always feel pressure to tip than older generations, the study said. Just 9% of Gen X and only 5% of boomers felt the same constant tipping obligation. When it came to tipping in store, a third of both Gen Z and millennials always or often feel pressured or were made to feel guilty when tipping. That compares to 23% for Gen X and 13% for boomers. Tornado activity heavy in April. Iowa leads the way, by Dinah Voiles-Pulver of USA Today. Dozens of tornadoes have left devastation in their wake this week, ripping through communities and leaving crumpled mobile homes, damaged roofs, and a trail of broken and shredded trees from Oklahoma to Michigan. The destruction suggests May is starting like April ended, with an unusually large number of twisters. We at Michigan Storm Chasers were just talking about how crazy the last month has been, and then boom, yesterday happens, Alex Melendez said Wednesday morning, hours after at least 4 tornadoes slammed the state. The tornadoes there Tuesday demolished mobile homes in a neighborhood near Portage, Michigan, and heavily damaged a FedEx distribution facility. Across the nation in April, 381 tornadoes were reported, according to preliminary storm reports from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Storm Prediction Center, which are likely to be adjusted slightly downward after review. That's roughly twice the long-term average number of tornadoes for the month. It's also the third most tornadoes ever counted in April, dating back to 1950. Said Harold Brooks, a senior scientist at NOAA's National Severe Storms Laboratory. Only April 2011 and April 1974 had more tornado activity. Among the states with the highest reported tornado activity in April, Iowa stands out with 56 tornado reports. That number is a bit on the high side, said Craig Kogel, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service office in Des Moines, who tracks the state's tornado numbers. As the storm reports are verified in the weeks ahead, Kogel said that number will probably drop down to the low 40s. But even if the final number ends up lower, Kogel said, it's still likely to be a record. The previous high for April was 40, set in 2001. The state's average for the entire year is around 50, he said. One death was reported in April during an outbreak on the 26th, Kogel said. CEO, Starbucks must revamp U.S. stores. Coffee giant fell short of estimates for quarter, by Anthony Robledo of the USA Today. Former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz has a few words for the company he once shepherded. While commenting on its disappointing quarterly earnings, Schultz said the coffee chain needs to improve the experience at its U.S. stores. In a LinkedIn post Sunday night, the former chairman, who has stepped down as CEO 3 times, said he does not need ties to the business to care about its success. I've emphasized that the company's fix needs to begin at home. U.S. operations are the primary reason for the company's fall from grace. The stores require a maniacal focus on the customer experience through the eyes of a merchant, Schultz said. The answer does not lie in data, but in the stores. The coffee giant fell short of Wall Street analyst estimates for quarterly earnings and revenue following a decline in same-store sales. Schultz urged the company to reinvent its mobile ordering and payment platform, which launched in 2015, to make it the uplifting experience it was designed to be. He called for executives to overhaul its go-to-market strategy and boost coffee-forward innovation to differentiate it in the marketplace. In February, Starbucks announced plans to upgrade the store experience through technological renovations at its new U.S. locations and about 1,000 renovated ones. Among the enhancements are acoustic dampening baffles in the ceilings that reduce noise inside its stores. These foams will minimize noise and reverberations, improving service for guests with assisted listening devices, the chain said. The company also will add adjustable lighting in the form of dimmers and power screens on exterior windows to reduce daytime glare and shadows. New acoustics and lighting features help create a more enjoyable and inclusive auditory and visual experience for customers and partners, the chain said in a statement to USA Today. I have had no formal role within the company since April 2023, but my love of the company and all those who wear the cloth of the company, the iconic green apron, knows no bounds, Schultz wrote. We've reached the halfway point of our program, and regular listeners are aware that at this point of the broadcast, we move to the obituaries. Our first obituary today is for Michael R. Dennehy. Dateline, West Yarmouth. Michael R. Dennehy, age 55, of West Yarmouth, previously of Randolph, passed away on May 6th after the most courageous battle with ALS. Born to Carol Dennehy and the late Robert Dennehy, Mike is survived by his loving wife, Julie Hubbard Dennehy, who had the pleasure of taking care of him through his battle. Mike leaves behind a legacy of love with his children. Mike was most proud of his boys, and they were the apple of his beautiful blue eyes. He was an amazing dad and taught his boys so many life lessons through the years that they will always treasure. Mike accomplished so much in his career. He passed nursing school and ended up in medical device sales. His most loved job was when he joined Cook Medical. Not only did he love his job and look forward to it every day, but he gained amazing lifelong friends who became family to him and Julie. After coming home from work, he would jump on the golf course that abuts his home and play 9 quick holes every chance he got. Mike was so talented and gifted. He learned a lot from his dad and could make, build, or fix anything. Mike is also survived by his caring siblings, his mother and father-in-law, and many other relatives, including his best pal and caretaker, Michael Hubbard. Mike and Michael had an incredible bond, and Mike looked forward to Michael's daily visits and banter about the news of the day, and also hearing about his treasures he would proudly show off. He is also survived by numerous nieces and nephews who adored him as Uncle Mike. Mike's cousin John was like another brother to him, and they shared the same sense of humor. Mike was a veteran of the U.S. Army and proudly served our country, and we thank him for his service. If not for the assistance from the VA, Mike and Julie would not have been able to manage this horrific disease. We are forever grateful for their assistance and would like to thank Dr. Thakor, Naomi, Michelle, and Bernadette for all their compassion and assistance through this journey. We would also like to thank the VNA hospice team that also became family to us. Cindy, Scotty, and Lori, we love you guys and are so grateful for your love, gentle, caring ways, and support. Finally, our CCALS family, Ron Hoffman, thank you. CCALS has been a godsend to us. Mike leaves a legacy of love and kindness that will never be forgotten. He was incredibly generous and was always looking for ways to help others. He embodied the best qualities of love, strength, and a strong devotion to his family and friends. If Mike loved you, he told you all the time. He will be deeply missed by all who shared this love with him, and his memory will live on in the hearts of all of us. We are all better people for having him in our lives. Visitation will be held on Sunday, May 12th, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. at Hallett Funeral Home on Station Avenue in South Yarmouth. Funeral Mass will be held on Monday, May 13th at 11 a.m. at St. Pius X Church on Station Ave in South Yarmouth. Interment will follow at the Massachusetts National Cemetery in Bourne. In lieu of flowers, please consider making a donation to CCALS in West Falmouth or on their website. This would make Mike happy, knowing how much this will help other families in need who are fighting this devastating disease. John F. Kender, Jr., Dateline, Harwich. John Kender, aged 95, of Harwich, died peacefully May 7th. Born and raised in Worcester, the son of the late John F. Kender, Sr. and Blanche LaPrade Kender. John was the husband of the late Adelaide I. Ryberg Kender for 49 years. John is survived by his 3 sons and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. He's also survived by one of his 3 siblings, Linda Soares of Franklin, and several nieces and nephews and cousin. John's brother Donald Kender of Webster passed away November 2022. Visiting hours are Monday, May 13th from 4 to 7 p.m. at Chapman Funerals and Cremations on Main Street in Harwich. A graveside service will be held on Tuesday, May 14th at 11 a.m. at the Evergreen Cemetery in East Harwich. For the full obituary, go to the website of Chapman Funeral. Barbara Ann Tomasi, Dateline, Dennis. Barbara Ann Tomasi, aged 82, of Dennis, passed away peacefully on May 6th in Livingston, New Jersey, after a brief illness. Barbara was a well-known Cape Cod jewelry designer and author of the critically acclaimed autobiography, I'll Stop Tomorrow. Barbara was born on July 1st, 1941, in Irvington, New Jersey, and soon moved to live her adolescence and early adulthood in New York City. She graduated from the High School of Music and Art and attended New York University. After working at Shell Oil Company in Manhattan, Barbara moved to Princeton, New Jersey, where she met her husband, Raymond. They traveled in Europe from August 1970 to May 1971. And moved in October 1971 to Cape Cod, where they ran a coffee house for young people supported by the Falmouth Ecumenical Program for Youth, a collaboration of all the churches in Falmouth. After then living for several years in Centerville, Barbara moved to Dennis in 1977. In 1982, Barbara wrote I'll Stop Tomorrow, an autobiography which chronicled her struggle with alcohol and subsequent recovery. She was very active during her many years of recovery, helping scores of people, particularly young men and women, get sober. In the late 1980s, Barbara opened Barbara Tomasi Distinctive Jewelry Designs and was a fixture at antique arts and crafts fairs across Cape Cod. Barbara's faith was an enormous source of strength and inspiration to her, and served as an example to her 2 children, David and Christina, who mightily loved their mother. Barbara adored her 4 grandchildren. She enjoyed when they would all frequently converge on the Cape to spend time with her and fill the house with laughter and joy. Barbara enjoyed eating out at Cape restaurants, watching movies, and attending her meetings. Barbara also loved animals, and the family pets occupied a special place in her heart. She often spontaneously stopped at animal farms across the lower and mid-Cape to pet animals. Bray Farm in Yarmouthport was a particular favorite. Barbara is survived by her children and grandchildren, several cousins, and other family members. She was predeceased by her mother Harriet and her father Rex. Visiting hours will be held May 13th from 5 to 7 p.m. at Doan, Beale and Ames Funeral Home on Route 134 in South Dennis. A graveside service will be held May 14th at 10 a.m. at the Quivet Cemetery in East Dennis. Donations in memory of Barbara may be made to the Brewster Animal Rescue League. Today's Ask Carolyn column is headlined In-Laws Stalk Live Stream for Couples Attendance at Church. Hi, Carolyn. Our church started streaming its services online during the pandemic, and this continues today. My in-laws often watch the services together. They live far away, belong to their own church, and attend services there regularly. The problem is they make snarky comments if they don't see us on the video. I see somebody slept in today, or, you missed church again. They've even set an alarm on their phone to go off when our services start. It's super annoying and downright stalkerish to me. My spouse thinks they're just doing old people stuff and it's harmless, but I think they clearly have no boundaries if they scold their adult kid for missing services. I haven't said anything to the in-laws yet, but I feel like I'll blow up the next time. Help! Signed, Stalked. Dear Stalked, a planet where this is just old people stuff is not one I want to live on. Wow. Plus, your spouse sounds ageist as stuff, not to mention as adept at boundaries as one would expect with these parents. Plus, say nothing, say nothing, say nothing, say nothing, blow up is not much of an improvement. The boundary problem is the eye popper here, but it's also the easier one to fix. Discuss this as a couple. Decide on your boundaries and then hold them. To get there, though, you need to fix your communication problems, which are harder because you're breaking your own bad habits versus just boxing out someone else's. Start with your spouse, whose harmless diagnosis may be accurate, I disagree, but still doesn't confer any obligation onto you. You find it intrusive, and you have agency. So take the time to figure out your position, then have the courage to articulate it. For example, I find it intrusive. I am not okay with it. Then figure out what you're willing and not willing to do about it. Do you want to tell your in-laws once that you find their behavior intrusive, infantilizing, and inappropriate, and will no longer respond to comments on your church attendance? Do you want to go non-responsive to their comments without explanation? Do you want to identify a pew that's outside the camera's range? Then tell your in-laws that hereafter you will never sit anywhere in the church but that pew, so their live stream will yield them nothing but the excellent service. Do you want to dig deeper for their purpose and redirect? They may, for example, be absolute crap at finding ways to connect with you, and this is their sad answer for that. Then articulate that to your spouse. Come to an agreement. It can be a joint decision to respond in a certain way. Then communicate with your in-laws in the manner of your choosing that you will not tolerate trespassing into your business. Whether you do this by standing up for yourself, letting their comments hit a wall, blocking their view, redirecting to ask what they thought of the sermon, or whatever else suits you. Study. Processed foods, a silent killer. Doctors cite myriad novel ingredients in U.S. diets. By Steve Dorfman of the Palm Beach Post. Dateline, Boca Raton, Florida. We've been told innumerable times by health and nutrition experts that whenever possible we should avoid eating or drinking processed foods. But of course that's proven virtually impossible for the vast majority of Americans over the last several decades. As a research report from Florida Atlantic University published in February in the American Journal of Medicine noted, there are now hundreds of novel ingredients never encountered by human physiology found in nearly 60% of the average adult's diet and nearly 70% of children's diets in the U.S. Physicians from Florida Atlantic University's Schmidt College of Medicine are so concerned about the myriad dietary chemicals so many of us consume. They believe that the ultra-processed foods in the standard American diet had become a quasi-silent killer in much the same way that unrecognized high blood pressure was in the late 20th century. So they decided to explore their hypothesis and gather meaningful data. Their goal was to provide important insights to healthcare providers in an environment in which the entertainment industry, the food industry, and public policy do not align with their patients' needs. Their findings were recently published in a commentary in the American Journal of Medicine. Those of us practicing medicine in the U.S. today find ourselves in an ignominious and unique position. We are the first cohort of healthcare professionals to have presided over a decline in life expectancy in 100 years, said Dr. Dawn Sherling, Associate Program Director for the medical school's internal medicine residency program, and one of the author's articles. Our life expectancy is lower than other economically comparable countries. Although the nation's health field is flush with advice for the public to choose minimally processed foods over ultra-processed foods, the message can still be confusing. As the American College of Cardiology noted with its 2021 guidelines, there's no universally accepted definition of what constitutes ultra-processed, and depending on the definition in play, some healthy foods might land in that category. For a variety of scientific and biological reasons, the additives in ultra-processed foods cause the digestive system to work more slowly and inefficiently than it does with whole foods, explains Dr. Allison Ferris, chair of the medical school's Department of Medicine, director of the internal medicine residency program, and another of the article's authors. The digestive delay caused by these additives can result in overeating and other problematic health complications. Even if the troublesome additives were removed from the ultra-processed food, there would still be concern for an overconsumption of these products, possibly leading to obesity, diabetes, and heart disease, Ferris said. The article noted that today public health organizations are increasingly using the NOVA classification system, which essentially divides foods into 4 categories: whole foods, culinary ingredients like butter, oil, and salt, traditionally processed foods such as bread and yogurt made with few ingredients, and ultra-processed foods, those foods that are industrially made and use ingredients not normally found in a domestic kitchen. Last month, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced major steps to promote the health of America's children through school meals, with federal nutrition standards gradually being updated between 2025 and 2027. The updates include reducing sugar and sodium, while also allowing for more locally sourced agriculture when possible. In addition, school lunch providers will have flexibility with menu planning. The FAU researchers' commentary surmises that one plausible explanation for the deleterious effects is that ultra-processed foods contain emulsifiers and other additives that the mammalian gastrointestinal tract mostly does not digest. They may act as a food source for our microbiota, and as such, may be creating a microbiome that can, in the right host, promote disease. Additives such as maltodextrin may promote a mucus layer that is friendly to certain species of bacteria that are found in greater abundance in patients with inflammatory bowel disease, Sherling said. This response, they believe, could explain why there have been marked increases in colorectal cancer in the U.S., especially among younger adults. They also believe that increased ultra-processed food consumption may also be contributing to several other gastrointestinal diseases. Whether ultra-processed foods contribute to our currently rising rates of non-communicable disease requires direct testing and analytic studies designed to do so, said Dr. Charles Hennekins, the medical school's senior academic advisor. In the meantime, we believe it's incumbent upon all healthcare professionals to discuss the benefits of increasing consumption of whole foods and reducing consumption of ultra-processed foods with their patients. The article also points out that just as the dangers of tobacco began to emerge during the middle of the 20th century, decades passed before the preponderance of the evidence and the efforts of forward-thinking health officials prompted policy change to discourage the smoking of cigarettes. They believe a similar path is likely for ultra-processed foods. The multinational companies that produce ultra-processed foods are just as, if not more, powerful than tobacco companies were in the last century, said Sherling. And it's unlikely that governments will be able to move quickly on policies that will promote whole foods and discourage the consumption of ultra-processed foods. In today's economic environment, when so many are experiencing sticker shock at the grocery store, Sherling urges healthcare providers to remain cognizant of the difficulties that many of our patients have in being able to afford and find healthier options. Yarmouth fireman shows off comedic chops in charity comedy competition by Frankie Rowley of the Cape Cod Times. Yarmouth firefighter Robert Reardon has always considered himself to be a funny guy. Quick on his feet, he tells me he's always been able to take a situation and turn it into something comedic, especially when there's a prop involved in the bit. My mother used to say that I always made her laugh, he said, so I guess that's something. With 31 years in the service, Reardon said comedy is a big part of the camaraderie in the firehouse, noting that most firefighters have a sense of respectable gallows humor to make light of the situations in which they find themselves. Now, he and 5 other New England firefighters have the chance to show off their comedic chops during America's Funniest Firefighter New England Regional Finals, a comedy fundraiser hosted by Firefighters vs. Cancer, a nonprofit dedicated to providing free occupational cancer screenings to firefighters. Each firefighter is paired with a New England comedian, and they're challenged to create a 5-minute set to perform on the Florian Hall stage. Skits will be judged by a panel of celebrity judges, and the winner takes home a $5,000 cash prize, plus the chance to compete to be America's Funniest Firefighter. Reardon is working with Jimmy Dunn, a comedian from Boston, and Moose on the Paramount Plus reboot of Frasier. I really love the camaraderie and the ability to help, he said. Public service is not something we do, it's in our blood. I think part of this is fulfilling that calling. Funds from the show support the work of Firefighters vs. Cancer and help cover the costs of occupational cancer screenings, a cause near and dear to Reardon's heart. While he's not in it to win it, Reardon said he's excited to be the cause of chuckles and show his support for fellow firefighters. After losing so many firefighter friends to occupational cancer, Reardon said this is not only an opportunity to make people laugh, but to give back in a sense to all of those who we've lost. And here's a joke from Reardon to encourage you to go to the show. It had me smiling. I accidentally took my cat's medicine this morning, he said. Don't ask me how. America's Funniest Firefighter New England Regional Finals takes place on May 17th at Florian Hall in Boston on Hallett Street. Tickets are $65 for auditorium seating and $100 for table seating. For more information or to purchase tickets, go to the website firefightersversuscancer.org. Chef and owner Tropiano notes loss of Spoon and Seed by Gwen Friss of the Cape Cod Times. Spoon and Seed, the Hyannis farm-to-table restaurant that took a key role in helping to feed people during the pandemic, has closed for good. Matthew Tropiano, chef and owner since 2015, made the announcement in a one-page letter on Spoon and Seed's Facebook page. It's been a very sad couple of days for me, but I know it's always darkest before the light, Tropiano wrote in the note to all dated April 11th. Tropiano has not responded to the Cape Cod Times messages about asking what caused the closure or what might be next for him. Cape Cod Beer, a frequent collaborator with Tropiano on food events, including the Super Bowl, Donut Fest, and Meatball Showdown, emailed a comment in response to a Cape Cod Times request. Matt was a great supporter of our brewery. He always added the Spoon and Seed touch by bringing different but delicious items like his spud nut potato donuts, beet and beef borscht, or eggplant meatballs. We could always count on him to add a little flair to our food-themed events, wrote Leanne Anderson, marketing and events manager for Cape Cod Beer Inc. in Hyannis. We're sad to see Spoon and Seed go, but we know we'll continue to see Matt out there supporting the local community. We wish him the best of luck, Anderson wrote. Raised in an Italian family, but classically trained in France, Randolph native Tropiano worked at restaurants in Europe, Boston, and New York, and then took the executive chef's job at Pond d'Avignon in Hyannis, before opening the nearby Spoon and Seed in 2015. He is especially known as a saucier, recognized for his skill at layering flavors, as anyone who made the braised short ribs recipe he shared with the Cape Cod Times can attest. A restaurant review of Spoon and Seed gave a taste of the menu and the old worldly touches that made the former Murph's Recession a well-known breakfast and lunch gathering spot. Such a huge loss to the community. It was a wonderful breakfast spot with great food, wrote Linda Young when members of the Times Facebook page, Good Stuff at Cape Cod Restaurants, were invited to share Spoon and Seed memories. Ann Balkoff of Barnstable wrote, I will always remember the Mama Maria's care packages Spoon and Seed created to recognize and support community members working during the pandemic. Packages delivered to police, fire, and hospital workers must have been very much appreciated during such difficult times. A local small business with such heart and compassion for others will be missed. Tropiano responded to the comments on the page, writing, The feeling is the same as losing a loved one for me, grieving. In the open letter on Spoon and Seed's page, he thanked the public for their years of support and expressed appreciation for staff with whom he has worked. I'm proud of the work that was achieved at this restaurant, Tropiano wrote. I know it inspired many. Expectations were met and always surpassed. Recipes and cuisine were born, developed, and became signatures and favorites. An interview with Almost Elton John, performing on Cape Cod in May, by Gwen Friss of the Cape Cod Times. Craig A. Meyer taught himself to play piano in the 70s and 80s using the music and movements of Elton John, and it never went away. Today, Meyer, known as Almost Elton John, is on the road 200 days a year, mostly performing his show, Remember When Rock Was Young, the Elton John tribute. The show will be held at the Cape Symphony May 18th and 19th, with a third show added at 3 p.m. Saturday. Tickets are $32 to $72. The show starts with The Bitch Is Back, a song Meyer remembers being controversial when DJs would play it on the radio after its 1974 release. Asked if he has a favorite Elton John song, Meyer said, Every song I do in my show I love very much. But there is a riff in the opening of your song that I love, where it's just me and the piano, or in this case also the strings. Meyer remembered once looking up to see a woman in an audience crying at that point, and he said, It's not an isolated incident. His music holds seed memories for me and for other people, and you can see those feelings just flooding over people as they listen, Meyer said. Meyer, who has been playing the Elton John tribute for 15 years, said he portrays John's glam years with the bright, feathery costumes. Meyer's band of more than a decade features himself on piano and vocals, 4 musicians, and 3 additional vocalists. It's an honor, he said, to perform with a group like the Cape Symphony. Symphony shows are special on so many levels. To have a conductor with a 50-piece orchestra supporting you is the ultimate thing, Meyer said. Carolyn Watson, an award-winning conductor of symphonies and opera, will be the guest conductor. Meyer said growing up, he was influenced by the music of Billy Joel and Barry Manilow, as well as Sir Elton John. Meyer worked with fellow Broadway veteran Donnie Kerr on Piano Men, a tribute show to John and Joel. Before Almost Elton John, Meyer was a performer on stage and screen. On Broadway, he created the role of Clinton Badger in Meet Me in St. Louis and toured in Cats, as well as having guest spots on TV shows including Will and Grace and General Hospital. His film credits include Leatherheads with George Clooney, Identity Thief with Melissa McCarthy, and Joyful Noise with Dolly Parton and Queen Latifah. I've been fortunate to lead the life I've led, said Meyer, who spoke in a phone interview before his performances on a week-long RCI Radiance of the Seas cruise of Vancouver and Alaska. Based in Atlanta, Meyer takes the travel in stride. He's the son of a Lutheran minister and attended 9 schools in 12 years. We lived in Hong Kong for a year in the early 70s when I was in 2nd grade, said Meyer. Meyer's vast experiences included working with Sir Elton John on the music for Disney's The Lion King. We were not on set at the time, so I've never met him, said Meyer, adding that he's rarely recognized off stage as the singer, which is okay with him. I'm happy being me, and I'm glad he's him, Meyer said. There's only one Elton John, and he's amazing. I'm lucky to go out and do my portrayal of him. The Best Bets column is headlined, Ospreys, Archaeology, Hikes, and Herrings, Upcoming Cape Cod Nature Events, by Frankie Rowley of the Cape Cod Times. Spring has officially sprung. May is here to stay for another 2 weeks, and everything is feeling a little less dreary. In the spirit of the weather warming up enough to allow us to return to the great outdoors, I've decided to select a couple of nature-themed best bets for this week's roundup. From learning how to raise and nurture an osprey to taking a hike along the beach, there's a nature event for you happening this upcoming week. Stephanie Ellis, Executive Director of Wild Care, a wildlife rehabilitation hospital in Eastham, is giving a talk about her experience rescuing, raising, and releasing baby ospreys at 6 p.m. on May 14th at the Truro Public Library. Ellis, a bird lover, will go into detail about the trials and tribulations of raising the orphaned birds, covering everything from their incubation to their eventual release into the wild foster nests at the Cape Cod Museum of Natural History. The event is free to attend. To register, call 508-487-1125. The Truro Public Library is on Standish Way in North Truro. Learn about the history and archaeology of Wing Island during a guided walk with Cape Cod Museum of Natural History archaeologist Dan Zotto at 1 p.m. on May 18th. Discover more about the island's rich history and unique archaeology across a 90-minute tour. The walk does cross over some challenging terrain, so wear appropriate shoes. Tickets are $15 per person, not including museum admission, and can be purchased online at the Cape Cod Museum of Natural History's website. Go on a hike through Sandy Neck's Great Marsh with the Barnstable Land Trust and Sandy Neck Park staff at 10 a.m. on May 15th. The free walk is sponsored by the Trust and the Town of Barnstable Department of Natural Resources and covers a 1.5-mile trail through the marsh and sand dunes. On the walk, hikers will learn more about the beach's flora and fauna, plus ongoing initiatives to protect and restore the beach. Hikers should come prepared wearing hiking boots as the walk goes over sandy and uneven terrain. To register or for more information, go to blt.org. Each year, dozens of the Cape's rivers see herring run upstream toward freshwater ponds every April and May to spawn in the summer. And each year, a select few gather to watch the phenomenon and count the number of fish. Stephen Waller and Jane Ward are some of the lucky few. In a talk at 1 p.m. on May 11th at the Osterville Village Library, Waller and Ward will share pictures, videos, and stories from their times watching the herring run and detail how the counting process works. The event is free. To register or for more information, call the Osterville Village Library. That's all I have time for today. This is your reader, Libby, saying thank you for listening.